So you consent, of course, to being filmed and recorded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No comment.
No comment.
Okay, so this teddy boy thing started in England after the war, and there were a couple of Savile Row, which is where the great tailors were in London, and these guys thought, okay, after the gloom of the war, we'll bring back Edwardian jackets. Now they were 3/4 length. You often see them in westerns as well, 3/4 length with velvet trim. They were pretty flash, and they thought, well, the young wealthy boys would like these, you know. But it wasn't the young wealthy boys who bought them. For some strange reason, it was the working class guys in London, say the East End of London, and they started to dress up in these Edwardian jackets with waistcoats and you know, pocket watch chains and brothel creepers. And because it was Edwardian, that got changed into Teddy.
And then I heard the sirens call, racing from Sirens Chrome.
In the early 50s, the Teddy Boys were dancing to a lot of jazz, and they were interested in sort of swing music. And so you've got these early Teds who are like that, and then in the mid 50s, of course, rock and roll happened, and they immediately took to that. And so you've got, they were really the first subculture, you know, before punks, before hippies, before even the rock and rollers. The Teds were, and they were known to be extremely violent too, and they would have razor blades under their lapels, you know, in case somebody. So naturally, over a period of time, you get teddy boy bands as well who wanted to play that rock and roll music. And it sort of died out a little bit in the 60s because the mods came around, and the Beatles, and you know, that sort of fashion became popular, and the Teds sort of became rockers. And the rockers rode motorbikes and wore leather jackets and used to fight with the mods, you know, have big massive brawls at beachside resorts with they hated the mods. I think they still do.
And then I heard the sirens call.
When rock and roll sort of had a revival, when after Elvis did his comeback special in '68, people got interested in playing rock and roll again, instead of sort of the psychedelic thing. And the Teds resurfaced big time, and they were very big in the 70s, and that's when Dave, our singer, was growing up in England. And so in the tail end of the 70s, he used to dress up like the Teds and go to the teddy boy rock and roll festivals. And so that's where he got that big influence, that's a big influence in the band, of those type of bands, because they're not, it's not like American rockabilly. it's a little bit simpler in the way it's played. They had their own style, so that's when Dave came to Australia, and then I met him in the early 80s, I think at uni, and I'd never really heard about it, or you know, knew about it, but at about that same time I was getting very interested in the way rockabilly guitar was played, because I couldn't work out what they were doing. You know, it wasn't like anything else. It was a mixture of country and jazz and blues, and it was about the mid 80s that Dave said, "Do you want to form a rockabilly band?" And I thought, well, yeah, sure, because I wanted to find out about it. And that coincided with this resurgence, which I think the Stray Cats had a lot to do with, but also country music sort of dressed itself up and started to, they came out with this thing called new country, and it was the influence of punk. Punk sort of came in and energised country music and energised a lot of the music, excuse me, of that time.
The joy was jumping out, swimming the river.
So when we got together, it was just exactly the right time. So we became very popular.
Yep.
And we would play up to 12 times a month. Dave was having a birthday, so we got a few bands and we played at the Republic. And it went all right, and we were rehearsing and doing a few things. And then Dave brought a song along, and I thought, oh right, so we're writing songs. And so I started, and he started, and it just kept going, you know, and now we've got close to 40 original songs. Probably about 5 years ago, we'd done an album with Stewie Long at Red Planet called All Draped Up, and Dave contacted a rockabilly promoter and distributor in England, and he said, yeah, he said, I'd be interested in signing you. And we sent him just a few tracks, and he said, but I want a whole album. So we got that whole album together and sent it to him, and we signed to his label, Racoons Records, and then he distributed it all around Europe. And so the next step was, logically, it was for us to go there.
Crisscross the country, breaking every law, living in a hellhole, they kick down the door.
And luckily we did it last year of going to Spain. I went over the year before just to talk to people, because there was a chance of going to England, there was a chance of going to Finland. So I went and met with different people, and Spain seemed to be the best place for us, because our stuff is not traditional rockabilly. It focuses probably more on dark things, dark subjects, and you know, we called it Rockabilly Noir because we needed a pretentious title, and so we were sort of a little bit on the outer of the mainstream. But in Spain, they just love rock and roll. They're just crazy for it. So they were very accepting of our own material. So we could go there and play our stuff with no expectation that we'd have to play, you know, traditional rockabilly hits like Elvis and Gene Vincent and all that. So yeah, we went to Spain and we toured around and went to the Canary Islands and played in Tenerife, and the response was just amazing for us. You know, we were really surprised how well it went, and luckily we did that, because then COVID hit. You know, about 3 or 4 months after we finished the tour. So if we'd put it off for another year, it just wouldn't have happened.
So what does that mean now?
Well, I was going to go back and line up another tour this year, but, well, you know.
Racing from Sirens Chrome.
Our concentration this year has been writing a whole bunch of new songs, which we demoed just about 10 days ago, so we could have a listen to them and then work out what's going to be on the next album. We were going to do the album earlier in the year, but of course everything shut down. So
To the bone, slipping in and out as the weeks and months have flown, and then I heard it.
I think it's one that's existed for a long time, because I've been reading some old newspapers and the musicians in there giving advice to younger musicians like over 100 years ago, exactly the same, you know, which is really, it's that weird thing where you need an ego to do this thing, you know, to get up in public, because I think somebody said that the greatest fear people have is not death, but public speaking.
Yeah.
And to actually get up in front of people and talk through a microphone is just like beyond a lot of people. They just can't imagine doing it. So you've got to have a certain amount of ego. But I think the big thing is to put that ego to one side for the sake of the song and for the band, you know. Don't try to find the part where you can show off, you know, or you know, because that's just going to destroy bands. It always has. There's one person or two people that want to, you know, say, look at me, you know. But it's about the band and it's about the song. I think that's always been a bugbear for musicians who want to do that sort of thing, you know, because they run into people that have got immense talent, but their egos are out of control. So it's really that's a real balancing thing about being confident, having ego to get up on stage, but don't let it destroy the band that you're in. I think that's one of the big things. And also find out about the business. Find out as early as you can about how it works.
From Sirens Chrome.
But you know, talk to a lawyer, talk to somebody, you know, that's been through it and find out. Don't just sign anything. For young people who may have a chance to become professionals and that, just be very careful what you sign.
Or what you say on camera.
Yeah, that's true. Because it will come back to haunt you in this day and age. With people like Josh Troy.